Welcome into another edition of Target Score Winnipeg. I'm Joey Slattery. That is Taylor Allen. If you're if you're listening to the podcast, glad to have you aboard. And if you're watching on YouTube, good to see you. Again, if you're on the audio side, check out the YouTube portion at Target Score Podcast on YouTube. It's free. You don't need to sign up or anything like that. You can just go in guest mode and follow us on Instagram as well at Target Score WPG. That's where you get caught up with every episode, previews of episodes, highlights, and also just developing stories as the year goes on. And Taylor, this story is developing nicely for the CEBL now after a 5-game skid and everything seemed like it wasn't working. You know, we saw all the pressure on Mike Taylor and the signs coming out at games that they wanted him fired, all this stuff. Like, it got pretty low. Then Simi Shittu comes in, the addition of Jalen Harris, and everything appears to be falling into place. 3-game win streak now as they head into Vancouver. But man, this turnaround has to feel good for the CEBL.
Absolutely, but it feels awful for me, and I feel stupid because, the past episode or two, I kept preaching, it's going to take time, guys. You can't just bring in these 2 stars and hit the ground running. They got to build some chemistry and whatnot. Well, Joey, what happens? These guys, show up in town, and boom, it looks like they've been playing with the CEBL since day one. Unbelievable, man. Like, the way this team is playing compared to what we saw earlier on in the year, completely different team. This is some of the best basketball I think we've seen this team play in franchise history. Honestly, just the way how everyone's getting involved. You got a guy like Simi Shittu now who is just so athletic. What he brings to this team defensively and offensively is something we have not seen from them before at the 5 position. And then you got Jalen Harris. His first game in town against Montreal, shot the ball, not so well, but still did a bunch of good things in that game. But then the Father's Day game against his former team, the Saskatchewan Rattlers, goes off. It's like he has a hit list. Like all the former teams that he's played on. Scarborough, he lit them up a week or 2 ago. Saskatchewan now lights them up. What do you have? I think 32 points. It's 7 3-pointers. Ends the game with a target time dunk to send everyone home happy. Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, this team was on that big losing streak. Now they've won 3 games in a row, and that losing streak, that poor start to the year, feels like forever ago now.
Yeah, and you know what, though? I'll defend you a little bit because I said this in the last episode, too. Like I said, it very easily could go the other way, and I think it was in the middle. Like, no one really spanked anybody, but, it was a close game or closer game, 2 big wins for Winnipeg. But, again, the adrenaline of that new team, the crowd being rejuvenated, right? That hope and, especially after that first game, that hope is delivered. Fans are excited. And that second game on Father's Day, they win that one. But the problem with this team historically, Taylor, has been they can't win on the road, particularly last year, right? So they won that 1 game in Scarborough, which is huge. But now you're going on the road to play 2 really good divisional rivals, right? You're going to Vancouver, who is by far the hottest team in the league right now, bar none. Probably the favorites to win the championship at this point. And then you got to go into Edmonton, who's really turned it around. And hey, man, that Edmonton game is not only the first time that Mason Boursier is going to be playing against Winnipeg since the release. It's also Brody Clark's Ring of Honor ceremony. And so the emotions are going to be high there as well, right? So I think there's a big test ahead, but that's not to take away of what's been done. Montreal was undefeated when they came in. They beat them. They held them to 89 points, which, Mike Taylor often says, like, 85 is their target, right? Like, they don't want to let teams over the 85 benchmark. So a little bit higher, but still they scored 92 points. But to me, it was the poetic way they did this, right? Because the biggest question coming into it with Jalen Harris there was, can he adapt to that team first non-star mentality type of game? He had 4 points and 2 rebounds and tied his career high for assists with 9. So answering the question right there that, hey, I don't need to score. And if it's not my night, I can hand the ball off and set up other people for 92 points, right? And then the best was that ending. Jalen Harris, ball in his hands, everybody looking at him to take that shot, despite only having 4 points, right? He was going to have the biggest 2 points of the night, get that game winner. No. Slips it into Simi Shittu, the guy everybody's been waiting for. It gives him his moment to have that, monumental moment as a CEBL right off the bat, right? He came in, he delivered on the first one. I think in that moment, it's tough to say this, right? They're just hooping, to be totally honest. But I do think there is that level of, if I feed my teammate to allow him to kind of fulfill that prophecy, so to speak, right? Like give him that, like, I'm here, this is what you're waiting for. I think there was much more value. If you're going to win the game, there's added value to it being Simi Shittu in that particular game.
I
Next game
remember
against, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say I remember looking down at the stat sheet at the end of the first half in the Montreal game and is like, am I looking at this wrong? Jalen Harris has he has 0 points, but yet even though he didn't score any points in that first half, it felt like his fingerprints were all over the fact that they had that big lead at half. I think he was plus 16 at the end of the first half, so he was doing a lot of good things. And then yeah, his shot continued to not fall in that second half. And you know, the one thing Winnipeg has not done well in these past two games is close teams out. I mean, they had that massive lead against Montreal going into the fourth, and they had I think a 14, 13-point lead against Saskatchewan going into the fourth, and both those games got a bit too close for comfort,
Yeah.
especially that Montreal game. I mean, Montreal had a step back three for the win, and it rimmed out, and Seabirds got the rebound, and Jalen Harris, casually brought the ball down the court, called a play, found his big guy down low, Simi Shittu, ends it with a nice little jump hook there, and away you go. But I mean, they killed Montreal for those first three quarters. It was like, oh my goodness, this game's going to be over, right away. But no, Montreal came clawing back, and it's something that was kind of lost in the excitement of that game was actually Emmanuel Acott. Because
Yeah.
Montreal, I think they got the lead somewhere towards the end there in target time. But Emmanuel Acott had back-to-back baskets that really kind of settled things down. And then, like we said, Simi Shittu capped it off there at the end. So,
Well,
yeah, that was a
there was a sense in that game, we talked about it on the broadcast, like you could tell guys were playing a lot more relaxed, right? Like Emmanuel Acott is now in a position where I think with the team, the way it was built pre Simi and pre Jalen was guys were stepping up, trying to like elevate their role, so to speak, right? Like Tevian Jones became the go-to guy, with Jalen Williams is kind of like his, like the 1B, so to speak, who was also playing at the 5 more often than the 4, right? Which is not his natural position. Field goal percentages were down, shots were forced, Emmanuel Acott was in that as well. Now everybody comes down a peg, right? In terms of like where they're comfortable, they're in their comfort zones in a good way here. Like now everybody's playing where they're used to playing, where they want to play, where their strengths are exploited. And Emmanuel Acott is a perfect example, and including the game against Sask where he was sick, right? He had 20 minutes and he wasn't feeling well to the point like he probably wasn't going to play. They started him. He had a really long go in the first bit. Then he was off for most of the game and came back later in that game against Saskatchewan. But in that Montreal game, first off, exciting game for game number 500 of the CEBL. Couldn't have asked for a better one, right? It was back and forth in target time. Just kind of wrote itself in terms of the script of a perfect game. But then you go to Saskatchewan game, and Harris shows you what he can do. Right now, we've seen the full Harris effect within 2 games of like, here's what he can do, the stuff we were questioning, and here's the stuff that we know he can do. And he's just kind of validating the point that I could drop 30 whenever I want. Because what makes that interesting, Tay, is he dropped 30 in what was it, 32 in that game? Sorry, what was the total? Yeah, 32 points.
32. Yeah.
32 points, 2 boards, and 2 assists. Dude, at the end of the first quarter, he had 2 points. By halftime, he had 16. He put 14 points up in the second half, and then he went off in the second half altogether. But it wasn't like he was off the hop. Like he had to find his rhythm in that game, right? With like 2 points and then going up to 12 is nuts. I have the stat sheet here, and he was 0 for 4 from the field. He had 2 free throws for those 2 points. So like things weren't going well in that first quarter, and then that's how quickly he can turn it on, right? Which I think is a huge, like the way that happened is huge for the Sea Bears in the sense that just because things are slow, you have to take it easy, right? He had like 35 minutes or whatever it was in that game, and he will find his stroke, and he's there when you need him. But when he's not, I think like in that first game, it's just not going my way. I'm not finding my shots. I can set up my teammates. Tevian Jones is playing well. Jalen Williams is playing well. Everybody still seems to be getting theirs, right? There seems to be even a practice now where, that there is that elevated sense of, kind of like what it was close, like at training camp. Like there's that sense of optimism, the ball's moving around. There's a high sense of energy. That those first 2 games, I mean, that was vintage Sea Bears basketball at Canada Life Center, right? This is what the brand was almost built on, so to speak, in the first 2 years. And we got a good reminder of those, like, what the fans and the atmosphere can provide in terms of those target time, I wouldn't say comebacks, but where like you've seen teams come back and make it close, but Winnipeg coming out on top, which for those first, what was it, 4 home games they were losing right after that Edmonton one. So, it's just nice to see that they're winning at home again. But now we look ahead to Vancouver.
Well, I was just going to
Dude.
say, hold on, before we
Yeah,
do
go
that,
for it.
we got to give Terry Roberts a shout out.
Oh,
It's hard not to just highlight Jalen Harris and his big shooting day and whatnot, but I thought that might have been Terry Roberts' best game of the season. I mean, he was super efficient. I think he had 15 points, 10 assists, 7 boards, only 1 turnover. Like, you can't ask for much more from your point guard than that. He kind of just looks like a kid in a candy shop right now. Like, he just has so many athletes surrounding him, stuff like that, and he's really facilitating the offense, setting these guys up for success. And that last play that they won on, the Saskatchewan gets the rebound, Terry
yeah.
forces a steal, slaps it over to Jalen Harris for the easy dunk, and boom, game over. So yeah, I
Here's the
thought
thing.
Terry had a hell of a game.
Totally. And in that one, he was 50% from the field, 50% from three, 100% from free throws, right? Like, here's the thing with Terry Roberts. He's so sound. And the team now has gotten to the point where we didn't know who the star was. Like we knew it was like Tevy and Jones, and he's still a star. But like we were still trying to figure out those roles. And Terry played really well, despite the team not playing well, right? And his field goal percentage has struggled at times too. But that's the thing. He's a sound point guard. He is so good at finding teammates. And now that you're seeing that comfort, like even that behind the back pass to Kyler Filowich,
That was
like
nasty.
it was
That
so
whole
nasty,
play was sweet.
right? Because it was that like a quick transition where the ball goes down to him. You think that he's gonna like up fake or whatever, and it's just boom behind the back. Kyler Filowich goes in and 2-hand slam, which is another guy who's struggled to finish offensively as a rookie in this league. And then you set him up with this beautiful pass, throwing everybody off and giving him an easy 2 points and the foul, right? It was just Terry Roberts has been such an important part of this team. And you're so right. Thank you for bringing it up because he is a guy that we don't talk enough about. Like he's never your player of the game. He doesn't pop on the stat sheets like he hasn't and probably will not have a 30-point game this year, but he'll have 11 assists or whatever. I would not doubt if one day he gets to like 15 and or sets the record in this league too, right? He's a very, very good point guard. He's a natural point guard. He can still score himself, but he is a guy that is facilitating plays, makes defenses move, and defensively he's been great as well. To your point, fighting for that rebound to get Jalen Harris the ball to win that game against Saskatchewan. The other thing too is with that Saskatchewan game, like the Montreal game to me is bigger. That win, Sask to me was the team you had to beat. Like you guys were fighting to stay out of the basement at that point, and you did it. But it's like I don't want to over glorify that win. Like Saskatchewan's good, but like the Montreal one to me is the monumental one, and now this is like a big test for me here because yeah, you're going into Vancouver. Vancouver has okay, they stomped the Rattlers their last 2 games. So they played in Saskatchewan, won 101-76, and then close game of Montreal. Like that was a good game, kind of what we were hoping for between these two teams. They win that one 91-82, but then Montreal suddenly goes from 4-0 before they played the Sea Bears to now a 3-game losing streak, right? Like now they've lost 3 and they've lost to Vancouver. So even then it's like, okay, so you beat Montreal, but Montreal has not rebounded from that. So were you truly getting the best Montreal in their first real road trip of the season? I think they were. I'm not saying they weren't, but now you got to go do it in Vancouver. And they played well against Vancouver in segments when Vancouver was here a couple weeks ago. But to do it on the road against a team that just, keeps getting stronger, it seems, it's going to be a huge test.
Yeah, I mean, every game Montreal has won except for that every game that Vancouver has won except for that Montreal game, but and they won the game by 9 still. They've won by double digits. Like Vancouver 8-1, they're just hammering teams. I think their plus minus for the year is 160. They got 3 star players who all score, give your defense problems. And now Winnipeg is going on the road against these guys. I mean, if you want to make a statement, I mean, yeah, if you knock off the Bandits here, holy crap, here we go. But yeah, I mean, to Winnipeg's credit, though, like you said, like when Vancouver did come to town a few weeks ago, everyone thought that the Sea Bears were going to get smacked because that was the point of the year where they were not looking so good. And I think they had the lead going into half, or they were just down 1 or whatever it was. So we'll see how they match up this time. I mean, you basically have to throw that game out the window now with Simi and Jalen Harris, of course. So, yeah, it's going to be a massive test. And then going into Edmonton, 2 nights later isn't going to be all that much easier on these guys as well. I mean, like we said, this is a team that historically has been pretty bad on the road. And yeah, they did win a game on the road in Scarborough last week. I mean, I think that's still a question about this team. And until this team can win a few road games, it has to be a question about this team.
Well, they've added Vancouver. The other thing we talked so much about Terry Roberts. Well, they added Corey Davis Jr., who is the CEBL record holder for assists. He had 126 last year, right? So you look at that key matchup there. But to put it in perspective, Taylor, like just how the impact has been over those 2 games, not counting the games where Harris was there without Shittu, just looking at the 2 games where like the duo has been together. The field goal percentage jumped up from 46.8 before June 11th to 49.3. Modest but important. Yeah, they had 92
He's still not shooting threes that good though. Even though Jalen Harris had like
he's
an
not,
incredible
he's
night,
33%. Yeah,
the team shot 30% from 3. Like they
So
still
that is
haven't
still
had
a
a
problem.
great 3-point shooting night.
and is that a move to come? Right? Like I'm not certain that there's not at least another move. I don't think it's going to be like last year, but if there's an opportunity to bring in like a 3-point sharpshooter,
AJ Hess is
Taylor's gonna
available.
Look at it.
AJ Hess, he's out there. They have his
Season
number.
3.
They have his number.
And you're already on AJS. You're still on AJS.
We could be doing this for 10 years, Joey. I'll still be talking about year 1.
While we're at it, got a Glenn Yang update.
Hey, Glenn's doing well. Good for him.
He is doing very well. Yeah. Anyway, back to 2025. Yeah. So like even points allowed. Okay, this is a big one too because they were allowing 90.3 points a game prior to Simi's arrival. And then 89 in the first game, 84. So you're seeing like even from Montreal to Saskatchewan, right? You're getting closer to maintaining that 85 level, which is huge. But the 90 points for me are big, right? There were so many times where you couldn't get past that 90 threshold where other teams are in the century mark. Like Winnipeg still hasn't had their century game, right? Like I'm waiting for that. The 100-point game is another like little milestone within the game. But yeah, like field goal percentage, as I said, 40, like almost 47 to now 49. Their points per game, 78.3 prior to, now it's 92. So in the last 2 games, what they're averaging, and then 89 points allowed. Again, very much in the ballpark, but you're seeing the little differences with that field goal percentage and a big one for points for. But you're right, it doesn't address the 3-point shooting, like even as great as Jalen's been. So in 4 games, Jalen Harris is averaging just shy of 19 points, 33% field goal percentage. Although he's averaging 5 rebounds, which is second best with the Sea Bears in per game, and Terry obviously has 7 per game, which is the highest. Simi Shittu, 2.5 assists as well. That's third on the team. So these guys come in and they're already at the top of the rankings in points, assists, like they're making things happen everywhere. Simi Shittu, 19 points, 61% field goal in these 2 games. So that's where the Sea Bears were missing, because last year, if you remember, Taylor, they were the best rebounding team with the worst field goal percentage. It was looking like that this year. And now with Simi, you're starting to see where that anchor comes in, right? Grabbing rebounds, making sure that they're putting those easy buckets in, right? When I say easy, they're not easy because he's got like 2 or 3 defenders on him, but he's scoring in this high. He's getting to his spots. He's scoring in his spots. He's doing what he's built to do. He's even hit a couple of 3-pointers. Like this guy is doing a little bit of everything. Winnipeg is in a really good spot, but now you're going up against a Vancouver Bandits team that has been rolling. They have 1 loss this year. I believe that one was to Calgary. But I mean, their team is only getting stronger with Corey Davis Jr. in his first game. He had 9 points, a couple of assists, getting used to it. But you got Mitch Creek, Kyle Mangus, who's been another dude that we saw here in Winnipeg, a guy that can huck up threes. He's been a huge story for these guys since Vancouver was here last time. James Karnick has joined the team. So it was already a tough game to play against Vancouver the first time around. And that one they lost 100 to 89. It was an 11-point loss, but they've added some dudes. And Vancouver, I remember talking to Kyle Julius, and the one thing he said, sometimes it's hard when you get a new player because you have to integrate them, and we were even kind of talking about like the league as a whole, and you could make that argument with Winnipeg as well. Like when guys come in sometimes, it's hard to get them. They're your star players. You have to get them in. Like, you're not going to play them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be seamless and they're going to take over. That's been the gift right now for Winnipeg. It's been going according to plan. So maybe there is an opportunity of now Winnipeg's had a few games together. Simi and Jalen Harris know their roles. The other guys have settled into their roles. So they have a really good opportunity, but you might be able to take advantage of some of the new guys that are there that they're trying to work in and get used to their system. Might be the advantage for Winnipeg this time. But I do think they match up very well. But Mitch Creek is always, for me, the guy that you have to look out for. Like, MVP frontrunner for sure with this Vancouver team. But with Simi and him fighting down low, like, that could be a really fun matchup to watch. But Mitch Creek isn't only, a guy that's going to fight down low. Like, he can stretch the floor, run out in transition. Like, he's a bit of a unicorn in that sense.
Do you want to hear a fun, useless fact that has absolutely nothing to do with their 2 upcoming games?
Yeah,
Hell
100%.
Yeah. So the Sea Bears have 2 guys on the team named Jalen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Harris, Jalen Williams. Did you know before Jalen Rose, former Raptor, former Pacer, former Bull, former NBA player, before Jalen Rose was at Michigan with the Fab Five in the 90s, right? They were the most popular college team maybe ever. We still talk about them today. Before Jalen Rose got to Michigan and that team blew up, the name Jalen wasn't really a name. There was I think a few hundred people named Jalen. Like, that was it. Like, he was named Jalen because I think his dad was named James and his uncle was named Leonard and his mom wanted to put the 2 names together and boom, Jalen. And after that Michigan run where Jalen Rose got all famous and whatever, the name Jalen exploded. Became, I think, one of the top 300 names used in the States or whatever it was in the 90s. And now you look at any basketball court in the world, basically, you're going to find someone named Jalen, it feels like, and the name is all over the place.
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't that kind of crazy?
The more
I read that online, so it has to be true, but yeah.
100%. I believe you.
Yeah.
And it's nothing that I'm going to fact check you on. So I'm just going to take your word for it.
Yeah, we don't do that around here. Fact check.
Yeah, no.
Just spit things out like fact.
Yeah, you shoot from the
Move on.
hip, right? That's how the best entertainment comes out. That's why there's so much heat around NBA on ESPN and all these guys. Anyway, but yeah, no, I thanks for the Jalen tidbit. But I do think this is a team that, the Vancouver one's big, but that's not the only part of this road trip. Then you got to go to Edmonton, which, Edmonton is another team that I feel like is finding themselves. I'm just going to bring up should have had this already figured out, but what are they at now? Because they moved up into the into third. So looking at like the current, yeah. So now at this point, you're going in. Winnipeg has played one less game, 4-5. Edmonton has played one more game. They're 4-6. Vancouver's running away. I should say running away with it. Calgary's right there at 7-2. But I mean, this is going to be a big one because regardless if you win or lose against Vancouver, like, you're really looking to create that separation with Edmonton. And depending on that game, you're either going to be catching up and trying to keep pace with Edmonton, or you've got a really good chance to create some separation. But, from all accounts and from what I've seen on Edmonton side of things, like, Sean East is still a beast. The West has is more parity than it appears. Like, it's one of those things where I think if you're looking at the standings, you're like, wow, Vancouver and Calgary are running away with it. To a degree, yes. But I also think, the games have been closer than people might think, and there's still a lot of season to go here. They're the teams that everybody's chasing. But, even Saskatchewan, like, they weren't terrible at 2-7, right? Like, watching them play when they were here, like, watching
There's
them.
no gimme games, man. Like,
there's
there
none,
seriously
right?
is not in this league.
Like, Brampton's the only one where I'm kind of looking at it like, something's got to give in Brampton. Like, that was the one game, like, I was almost like, here's the thing. I was more shocked when they lost to Brampton. I wasn't as shocked when they lost to Saskatchewan, if that makes sense, right? Like, it was kind of like, even though their records are similar, like, it's going to be a battle. Saskatchewan has some big wins, mind you, right? Like, the 2 wins that they do have, like, they've come against, I think, not Vancouver. Who did they come against those wins? But like, they're a team that has really made things tough on other teams. I want to take the second to actually look at this now. So their wins were against Calgary. That's what it was. The 87-84 game against Calgary. Like, and that was a back-to-back win after beating Niagara. And those were both on the road. So, like, Saskatchewan's there. Like when you beat those teams, Niagara, the defending champs, and then Calgary, who, without that loss to be tied with Vancouver right now. But you delivered that blow to Calgary and gave them like a season low in points for. So I just feel like the parity's there. There are no gimme games. And I think that's probably a blessing for the Sea Bears that, every game's a test, but also it's not as intense if you lose because you're in the playoffs, 100% because of the hosting thing. But yeah, there's no gimme games. So even when you're going up against an Edmonton, this is a game that, depending on how the season pans out, Edmonton very well could be in the conversation of leading for that spot in the conference championship.
Should we talk Alex Campbell for a minute?
Yeah.
He played 3 minutes against Montreal. His role has clearly been reduced. Didn't score. Wasn't really in the game to score. And then only played 11 minutes the following game, the Father's Day game against the Rattlers. Didn't score as well. What do you see his role with this team moving forward? Obviously, Alex is a amazing guy, one of my favorite guys on the team to talk to, and I'm sure it's similar for you. Just great having that guy in the locker room, I'm sure, and stuff. But just feels like his role on this team has obviously been cut back because of Jalen Harris and whatnot. And Alex, he did start the year, not shooting the ball that great. But I don't know, man. Like, what are you seeing with him?
You know what, though? It's been really since he got to Winnipeg. Like his shooting has dipped. He's had trouble finding his stroke, and this is a guy that's been, billed a 3-and-D, not even billed, like he's been a 3-and-D guy his whole career, especially in the CEBL. 3-and-D, for those that are new, just means like a 3-point shooter and a great defender. I still think he's great defensively. I think that's his role there. Lockdown guy. You will see him in target time when it's lead protecting. But I mean, we saw a lineup against Montreal where we saw 3-point guards out at the same time, right? Like there was a portion of the game where they had Jalen Harris out there with Terry Roberts and Joffrey James, right? So like here's the thing is, Mike, we talked about this in earlier episodes. Like Mike Taylor is looking at this. It's not really starters and reserves, they're lineups. Like he really has a hockey look at this because of the Canadian rule. Like you have to look at your different looks on how it's going to look with two Canadians on the floor, right? Simi Shittu being Canadian helps a lot. But I think with Alex Campbell, he's got to find his stroke. Like the one thing with Alex Campbell is he's going to keep shooting, and he should, because that's what he made. Like he can't lose his confidence there. And it almost feels like once he gets that one in, like to find that rhythm again. But like the one shot we all remember was last year's home opener, right? Where he wasn't playing well either, wasn't shooting the ball well, but he hits the big three. But I think from a culture standpoint, I will say he's at a stage in his career where I think obviously you want to play, you're a competitor, but he's a team guy first. That's the one thing. Like Alex Campbell's always the guy that we go to when someone leaves, going back to last year. And he always says the right things, and I don't think he's just saying it because it's the right thing. Like he goes out there and he says, along the lines of like, my brother, that guy, like will always be a teammate, but here's where we are now, right? He's always the voice of reason. He's never too high, never too low. I think this guy, at the stage of his career and the success he's had, like you got to remember, he's first Canadian to score 1,000 points in the CEBL, right? He is a legend in this league. Like dudes from the G League and the NBA that have that experience will come up to Alex Campbell on this team because he's Mr. CEBL, right? So I think he's at a point in his career like, hey, dude, I will sit back if I have to and, bite my lip, play my 3, 6, 9, 11 minutes. If you need me for 25, you'll be ready, right? But for him right now, it's about getting that championship and, doing it here in Winnipeg. He is the team captain, right, for a reason. And I think this is a big reason why. There's new guys coming in, new blood. He's had his moment, for a long time. He'll always be a legend in this place. I'm sure there'll be a few teams that are, putting Alex Campbell in their ring of honor when his career's said and done. But I think right now the importance for him is don't lose the confidence. Like, because if you do find your stroke, that's going to be great. And just give the minutes that you have. Defensively, that'll always be his most important. He's a aggressive defender and like one of those gritty characters that, the Sea Bears are trying to build on that, like, that blue collar, go to work, grind it out, right? He's one of those guys. He's an important piece of this team from a culture standpoint. He struggled this year to find any success in the field, but I just feel like he's one of those dudes to watch out for, that if he hits one and hits two, like he might go off for the Alex Campbell game, right? Where he's going to have that one more player of the game. I don't think it's going to be, for the whole season. I think he has one pop game in him for sure, but I think his numbers will come up. But he's got to hit a few shots. I shouldn't even say I think they will come up. I think it's very, like, there's a good chance this is him this season. Like, this is what we've seen with him, but I don't think it becomes a distraction with Alex Campbell. I think he's a guy that will take it in stride. He's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, right? I don't think he's as bogged down. Other guys, I think when it gets to your head is, I'm not shooting, but my field goal percentage is down. How's that going to affect my next contract, right? How am I going to get to the G League or the NBA? I don't think those are the same distractions for Alex Campbell, right? Like, he's a family guy. His family's here. Like, I think he's just here to do what he has to do as a teammate and get a championship in Winnipeg. But I mean, hey, if he's not causing drama and he's sitting those 3 minutes, I don't really see a problem with it, right? He's playing those 3 minutes, I don't see a problem with it. But it would be nice to see him have a little bit more, of an impact offensively, particularly with the three, right? If he can become that 3-point shooter. And I think, we talked about 3-pointers not being a big thing. I think that's one part where coaching staff's looking at it. Mike Taylor's looking at it. Well, was kind of hoping Alex Campbell would be our guy there, right? Where he could spot up, shoot that three. Because I don't think they need it at a level like a Scotty Lindsay. Like, they could use it for sure. But I mean, the style that they play, they just need someone that can hit like 2 or 3 a game, right? Like, consistently get you that 9 to 12 points, maybe, and just be a 3-point threat, which they don't really have.
Yeah. Well, I got to get to Sea Bears practice pretty soon before they take off for BC. And you got to get to a haircut, which is even more important.
That's why I'm wearing a hat, man.
But in closing, not to transition away, but I'm gonna just letting everyone know we're recording this the morning of Game 6 of the NBA Finals.
Yes,
and I still believe, Joey. I still believe these Pacers never say die. Tyrese Halliburton, whether he's on 1 leg, 2 legs, doesn't matter. Pacers winning tonight, Game 6, and anything can happen in a Game 7. That's the beauty of a Game 7. Do I think they would win a Game 7 in Oklahoma City? Absolutely not. But you never know, man. So I still believe, damn it. And I think they kind of blew the series when they lost Game 4. They were up 10.
Mm-hmm.
They're up 10 late in the third quarter. They could have went up 3-1 over this historically amazing Thunder team. Oh my goodness. But they let that slip through their fingers. So if this series goes the way things are trending, Oklahoma City wins, it's going to be that Game 4 that I lose sleep over for, well, basically the rest of my life. So.
No championships come without adversity, Taylor. You still got to believe. I like that you're believing your Pacers, right? I think it's weird that I had more belief off the hop than you did in your Pacers. But here they are in Game 6. You would have signed up for this. And as you say, like, if Halliburton's not in the game, can the team rally around that? Like, we don't have Tyrese. Sometimes, not to say that it is the Patrick Ewing effect, but Patrick Ewing effect, sometimes when your best player comes out, everybody elevates and kind of sticks to the system because you don't have the safety valve, right, of Tyrese Halliburton. And if they do that and he is somehow ready for that Game 7, watch out. But I would not be shocked if this goes 7. I think they're going to win Game 6, regardless of whether or not they have Halliburton. And I think it goes Game 7. I think you're right. I still think OKC's going to win it. But part of me is not, I'm not writing off the Pacers. They've been here. They've been this far before. Like, they haven't been to the finals, but they got through the Eastern Conference final. They were swept. They have that experience of what it's like to get so close and lose. Now they're even closer. So I think there's going to be a fight in there that only a team with that experience in years past can really kind of dig into, knowing like how hard it is to get there.
Yeah. I mean, this is a team that's been counted out a million times. And even when they're playing in Oklahoma City, there's so many stretches where it's like, oh man, Oklahoma City is going to run away now. Like they're cooking now. And Indiana, like they hang in there. Like they can take your best punches and, still bounce back up. So yeah, it's a never say die team. So we'll see what happens. But the fat lady isn't singing yet, but she's warming up the vocal cords. She's doing some vocal exercises and whatnot. So it's gonna be pretty. I'll be pretty bummed if it doesn't go Indiana's way tonight. But either way, been a hell of a run.
Well, I keep your hopes up. Series isn't over yet. If you're watching the NBA Finals, enjoy the NBA Finals. If there's a Game 7 after this, because by the time this comes out, it'll be over. If there's still an NBA Finals, enjoy Game 7. If there's no Game 7, congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Sea Bears play on Friday, so that is June 20th in Vancouver, and then they go on to play the Edmonton Stingers on the 22nd. So enjoy those games. We'll be back next week with another edition of Targets for Winnipeg. That's Taylor Allen. I'm Joey Slattery saying see ya.